Good morning, absolutely great to see you again. We're starting a whole new topic. We're going to be looking at the life of Jesus leading up to Easter. Easter is such an exciting time, such a great celebration. It's when Jesus, well, I'm not going to give you any spoilers. We're going to look at the last week of Jesus' life before he rose again. But first, I want you to imagine that Queen Elizabeth is coming to town. Lockdown's over, everyone's safe, it's all okay to be out in public. Imagine all of that, which will be such a wonderful day. And Queen Elizabeth is coming to town. Let's think about what she'll need. What do you think she might wear? And then she's going to open Parliament. She wears a very nice gown and she has a cloak and she has her crown and she has her crown jewels and she's really dressed up for the occasion. If she's just going elsewhere, she's normally very smartly dressed with her hat and her handbag. How might she get here? How might she travel? I would imagine she'd come by car, in probably an armoured car. Who might come with her? Maybe Prince Philip if he's better. Maybe Prince Charles. Certainly she would have some security with her. She would have some armed personnel to make sure that she was kept safe. What do you think people would do when she arrived? I imagine they would be lined up either side of the street, as you see on the news sometimes, waving and cheering. Who else do you think might be interested in her coming? I would imagine, as well as the people of Tunbridge Wells and people from other towns coming to see her as well, there would definitely be press. There would definitely be journalists taking photos and trying to ask her questions. It'd be quite interesting to see. It would be quite exciting to see. Jesus, we know, was a king. Is the king of kings. And the story that we're looking at today, he is arriving in Jerusalem. Let's go to Jerusalem, said Jesus to his friends. I have something important to do there. So they went. And when they could just see the city from a nearby hillside, Jesus said, let's have a parade. Jesus' friends were surprised. A parade? They wondered. Why a parade? But no one said anything because Jesus was already busy giving instructions. I want two of you to borrow a donkey, he said. Tell the owner I need it. He'll understand. When the two friends returned with the donkey, Jesus hopped on its back, gently nudged its sides, and started down the hill. His friends followed close behind. Hooray for Jesus, they shouted. Jesus is king. Down they rode towards the city gate. And the closer they got, the more people joined them. It's Jesus the teacher, someone called. It's Jesus the healer, called someone else. 3 cheers for Jesus, called one and all. Soon there were people everywhere, marching along with the parade and shouting from the roadside. Some took off their coats and laid them in front of the donkey. Others cut palm branches from the trees and waved them about. There were hundreds, maybe thousands, clapping and dancing and shouting their way through the city gates. Everyone was happy. Now let's compare that. Let's ask the same questions that we asked about Queen Elizabeth coming. Jesus the King is going to Jerusalem. What might he wear? Well, it doesn't say that he got changed. It doesn't say he put on a tux or anything like that. He wore the clothes that he always wore. How might he travel? He didn't have a limousine. He didn't have a fancy carriage. He went in on a donkey. Who went with him? He didn't have security. He didn't have armed police officers alongside him. He had his friends. He had his disciples with him. What did the crowd do when they saw him? They were excited, they celebrated, they threw their clothes, like their coats over, they waved palm leaves, they had a real celebration, which is not dissimilar to what would happen if Queen Elizabeth came. It's quite a different picture, isn't it? It was a much more humble entrance than Queen Elizabeth might have, or any visiting celebrity might have, or football teams when they've won the cup, they get on a bus and they drive around waving. And there are always all sorts of people around to keep them safe, and Jesus had none of that. There is one last part to this story. Most people were celebrating. We finished it by saying everyone was happy. Almost everyone. Some of the religious leaders didn't like Jesus. They were jealous because the ordinary people were so fond of him. And when they saw the parade, they frowned. Wait just a minute, they called. You can't have a parade here. Tell your friends to be quiet, Jesus. But Jesus just laughed. Tell them to be quiet? Impossible. Then he turned to look at the crowd. Can't you see? He said, there's so much happiness here. that even if I could make the people quiet, the stones in the street would jump up and shout for joy. Now that definitely wouldn't happen if Queen Elizabeth came. I don't think that the stones would jump up and down for joy. So there are some similarities, some differences. The biggest difference is how they would have travelled. Queen Elizabeth will come in a fancy car, nice and warm. Jesus came in on a donkey. Why do you think Jesus entered Jerusalem that way? He and his disciples had been to Jerusalem before. They'd never gone in like that. They'd just walked in like everybody else. This time it was different. This time Jesus knew that the time had come to fulfill all the prophecies. And actually, if you look back in the book of Zechariah, it talks about the king entering on a donkey. So he was fulfilling a prophecy. But also, if you look through the Old Testament, you'll see a lot of battles. Kings and their armies storming into towns and cities. And only about 100 years before this happened, the Roman Empire had stormed into Jerusalem and taken over. But traditionally, entering a city on a donkey showed that you were arriving in peace, rather than a war-waging king on a horse. Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey to show that he was a king who was coming in peace. And he is the same today. He wants to be our friend. He wants to be your friend. He wants to be in your life, but he will never bully and he will never force. He will never come in waging war. I'm going to take over. He wants you to choose to be his friend. Will you be like the people of Jerusalem who were so excited to see him that they were throwing their coats and they were waving their leaves? If you haven't already said yes, today would be a great day to say, yes, Jesus, I want you in my life. And it would not be something that you regret. Now, there were some people back then who weren't excited to see Jesus coming. But we're going to learn more about them in the coming weeks. Till then, see you next time.